Can you hear me now, Lacey? Hang on, let me get in there and check. Can okay. Okay, more technical issues. Hang on, guys. Let's see if we can fix this. Okay, so Instagram, looks like we have a bit of a delay in Instagram too. So Lacey, you can hear me? Alan? Good. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delay in going from my streaming software over to Instagram, so it could be that could be causing the issue. But I'm glad you guys can hear me now. I think I've got the text. I think I've got the tech stuff almost fixed. I hope. Instagram, I've got like at least the whole picture there, which has never happened. Substack, we have I heard from technical support over at my in my at my uh the folks the technical support at Ecamm, which is my streaming software, that told me they actually did a rebuild for their Substack integration. So hopefully we won't see any glitching over there. Hey Ann, hey Najiri, and YouTube and Facebook. You guys haven't had any problems, so thank God everything's working there. All right, guys. The reason I am on a little bit early, normally I come on at 11:30. I'm sorry, at 11:15 Eastern time. I have a really, really good interview today. Really, really. I mean, all the interviews. They're very cool people. But Ken Harbaugh will be joining me at noon today, and this is going to be a really, really interesting. That's pretty funny. The Xenocrarias. Thanks, Najiri. Good morning. How are you? So Ken Harbaugh will be joining me. I'm still debating right now whether I'm going to do that noon interview live or I am going to record it. I'd like to go live because Ken is very, he's growing here on Substack, and a lot of the people know him from the live community. They've seen Lev Parnas has interviewed him, several other of the larger creators. Ken is building his Substack community as well. So I think, and also going live will give the other platforms a chance to see him. Irrespective for the first few days, whether I go live, the only reason I'm considering not going live is because of the tech issues right now, and they can get really, really dicey when you have an interview. So I'm debating if I'm going to risk it or not, or just record it. Irrespective, the interview will be we're not going to it's too risky to multi stream it, and also since Substack is technically our home base for Xenocracy. I think the way I'm going to run that interview is it will be sort of exclusive to Substack. Just head over to Substack, xenocracy.news. Feel free to please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe if it's something you're comfortable with and you want to support my work and choose the subscription, the paid subscription option. It's always appreciated. But head over to xenocracy.news, subscribe for free or for paid, and whether I post Ken's interview or I go live, that's where you'll be able to see it for the first several days, and then after that, we'll move it over to YouTube to get to a broader audience. But Ken is a former U.S. Navy pilot. He has not so many years ago started a very successful nonprofit for veterans. He's also a critic of the Trump administration. He's also one of the bravest people I know in my life. Ken, I'm going to show some clips of it. Ken recently did a documentary where he built up an extraordinary amount of trust with the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and he did this documentary in Ukraine where it's an incredible piece of video journalism and foreign correspondence where he embeds with a company, a group of Ukrainian soldiers whose job it is to somehow keep the town of Kherson safe. The town of Kherson is almost being constantly attacked by drones from Russia, and they are shooting down these drones with larger weapons, but also just automatic weapons. And Ken, this documentary is just it's nerve wracking and incredibly informative, and it's going to be a really interesting interview because Ken is also an expert on the drones that are in Ukraine that are being used, as well as military issues across the board. And we're going to talk about all that, obviously, but we're also going to discuss how all of that relates to the current war in Iran, the drone situation in Iran, the drones that the Iranians are using against U.S. forces and against the Israelis in the war right now. So it's going to be a really cool interview. So please watch for the email. If I do decide to risk it and go live, which I'm kind of leaning against right now, you'll get an email as soon as we go live at noon. If not, as soon as I get off, wrap up the interview, get the piece lightly edited, it'll be up there, and it's going to be really, really an informative interview. That's why I'm on early tonight. That's why I popped in here about 20 minutes early, because I'm really going to wrap this live. I just want to do a quick news update, and then we'll wrap this live around 11:25 or so, because I just need a little bit more time to prep for my interview with Ken, and we'll go from there. So I hope everybody's doing well after all that. Hey, Irish Aggie, how are you? I hope you're doing well, Aggie. Gamer Vet Dad 305 all day. It's nice to see some folks from, now that we've got Instagram working well. It's nice to see a bunch of folks from there too joining us. How are you guys? Whoever's here from Facebook and YouTube, my apologies. I still can't see the live stream yet. We'll get there, or the live feed yet, but I'm working on it. We'll get there. So yesterday, the village idiot Donald Trump lied, right? We know that he lied. We talked about this on the live yesterday a little bit. I've done, probably too many Instagram, Facebook vertical posts about this. But he lied, right? The idiot came out and told us, we're having a great conversation. It's a fantastic conversation. We're making a lot of progress with Iran. Donald Trump had no I talked about this yesterday. He had there were no negotiations with the Iranians over the past 48 hours, like the village idiot said there was. And I mean, we all knew it, right? We all knew he was lying. I mean, some people didn't know he was lying. The media say, hey, Winifred, how are you? The media seems to have a very, very difficult time, even after over a decade of Donald Trump consistently, incessantly lying to benefit himself. Somehow they can't notice that. It staggers. It boggles my mind. Stock investors and commodities traders, who basically their respective markets ebb and flow depending on what the village idiot Donald Trump is saying and what he's lying about at any given moment. Right? They just they can't seem to recognize that he lies. And I mean, look, I'm sure many of them, like I do, have children, and we watch our children grow up, right? We watch our children as really small kids, and they don't really know the difference between right and wrong, and they lie, right? And they lie badly, right? And we all did it too as children, right? We all, sorry, my headset's a little tight, a little loose. I mean, we all lie, right? Or lied as children. And you're not good at it, right? And we raise our kids and we teach them, don't lie. It's not a good thing to do. Just don't lie, right? And eventually people grow up and they might lie anyway, but generally we know you shouldn't, right? And generally, because of a lifetime of experience, once you become a grown-up, even a teenager, you can pretty much tell, unless somebody is really, really good at it, you can pretty much tell if somebody's lying, right? And you can always tell if somebody is lying like a child would lie, right? Because we have kids, or we've seen kids, or we've been kids, or all of the above. We know when they're lying. And after 10 years of watching the village idiot Donald Trump lie badly because he still lies like a 4-year-old child. A 4-year-old, you wouldn't expect them to be good at it yet. You would expect the lies to be stupid, to be transparent, to be asinine, to be laughable. But we don't laugh at our kids because they're kids. But an 80-year-old man who still lies like a child, and the consequences of that incessant lying are catastrophic for the country, the electorate that was dumb enough to put this buffoon in office again, and subsequently there consequences devastating for the world. When we see as grown-ups that idiot lying over and over and over again, yet there is a whole community of grown-ass American adults, whether it's legacy media outlets, and it's not all of them, and it's not everyone, or whether it's stock traders, or whether it's commodities traders in terms of the price of oil right now, or whether it's our allies, whether it's leaders in Great Britain or Germany or France, or people with real skin in the game in the Middle East. There are so many people who seem to have not figured out that everything this imbecile says is a fucking lie, right? It's everything is. Nothing is true. But yet yesterday, the idiot tells us, we had great conversations with the Iranians. No, he didn't. He didn't. He's in deep shit, and he's desperately looking for an off-ramp because the price of gas is too high at the pump for Americans. That's all this dumb fuck cares about. That is it, because it makes him look bad, right? It makes him look weak, right? It makes him, Donald Trump, the one thing that the village idiot is always afraid of is appearing to be a loser, right? When he looks like a loser, that's the worst thing for him. And he looks like a loser, right? He's losing this war. The Iranians are out. They're not able to outflank our military. They're not able to out-strategize our military leaders from a military perspective. Of course, they can't do that. They don't have the capability. They don't have the technology, the capability, and they don't have our U.S. military prowess. Although martyrdom is a thing that the Iranians have that the United States military doesn't. But still, there's no chance militarily. But in terms of the PR war and the effort at the highest levels of government to actually plan things, the Iranians, just like every other world leader, has been able to dupe the village idiot, outflank, outwit, and outmaneuver him. Everyone from when it was Justin Trudeau to Prime Minister Carney, this was about the tariff and the trade shit, to Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, to the previous. I mean, we have the new Prime Minister of Japan, but the previous Prime Minister, to the South Koreans, to everybody else that outwitted, to certainly President Xi of China, to everyone every military leader that has outthought, outflanked, and outplanned the village idiot since January 20th, 2025, when he was inaugurated, right? It's not unreasonable to assume that the Iranians are doing that now. Clearly, the idiot and the idiots around him never really thought through this idea that the Iranians could very easily close off the Straits of Hormuz. That the Iranian strategic plan might be to basically shut down the transportation of energy, of oil, right? I could have thought of that. And I shouldn't fucking be president, right? God forbid, right? But a dumbass like me sitting in my little room could have thought that through. This confederacy of dunces couldn't do that. And maybe some of the military strategists that they have access to, not any of the buffoons, the political appointees, the sociopaths, but some of the mid-level and upper-level military strategists who Drunken Pete Hegseth hasn't fired yet. Maybe they presented that suggestion to the idiot, but clearly Hegseth wanted a war because he's a tough guy and he's got to show everybody how big his balls are if and when and while he's inebriated and when he's not. And Donald Trump certainly likes that, because any opportunity to express his manhood or lack thereof is important to him, and that this war is very much about that as well as anything else. So the fact that they never thought anything through is indicative of the fact that the Iranians do, and they have, and in terms of the PR war around the world, and in terms of the economic strategy associated with the war, the Iranians have far, 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 far outpaced anybody in the White House, quite frankly. Anyone in the It's a weird moment in US history when I think about, as much as I was appalled and offended and opposed to the first two wars in Iraq, as much as they were unnecessary and they were catastrophic for Iraq and for the United States, I never really gave serious thought to the idea that the Iranian regime, which in its own way is a religious extremist regime, right? The Ayatollahs, the former Ayatollah, the current Ayatollah, the former Ayatollah, before the former Ayatollah, right? But it is a form of religious extremism, right? And I never really gave thought to the idea that folks who are approaching a war from that mindset are out thinking strategically in terms of the PR here, the people here in the US. I just assumed that we were better at that because we weren't religious extremists. And whether or not my assumption is real or true or nonsensical or whatever, that's what I thought. Except now we are in this just fucked up weird moment in history, right? Where the extremists are clearly outmaneuvering, outthinking, and to a weird, lesser extent, out telling the truth than the U.S., right? We are the bad guys in this war. Now, maybe there's no good guys in this war either. You can make that argument, and I would certainly agree with that. Iran, is a state sponsor of terrorism. They have called for, the complete and total destruction of Israel over and over again. Not that I'm a fan of Israel at this moment either. And I'm an American Jew, by the way, but I am appalled by Israel's behavior in Gaza and in other areas. But at this point, it feels like, although we in the United States, it always felt like we were the good guys, even when we were the bad guys, we could still kind of delude ourselves into pretending we were the good guys. That I think that delusion for all of us, except the most extreme members of the MAGA cult, that delusion I think has dissipated. We are the bad guys. There are no good guys in this particular fight. And we are the bad guys. And although we're winning militarily to a certain extent, we are getting fucking clobbered in terms of the PR war, and we are getting destroyed in terms of the economic war. And Donald Trump and the goofballs around him are completely getting outthought, outflanked, and outwitted by the Iranian regime. Unquestionably. I think that's simply factual, and I think it's inarguable. So taking that into consideration, the idiot lies and says that yesterday and tells us that he has had these incredible conversations, these really great negotiations for the last 48 hours going on with Iran. And he talked about how Mr. Kushner and Mr. Witkoff have been doing a fantastic job. His son-in-law, it's so fucking crazy. Donald's son-in-law, right? And Donald's corrupt shyster real estate lawyer, right? These two putzes, are the ones that are going around the world, supposedly. Witkoff, at least, is the one going all around the world, supposedly negotiating all these peace deals. And Kushner, because, like me, he's an American Jew, somehow that defines him as an expert in the Middle East. And so these two schmucks are the ones that have been supposedly negotiating for peace with the Iranians. And these two schmucks are the ones that the idiot told us yesterday for the last 48 hours have been having productive talks with the Iranians. And it was a lie. And today the reporting is coming through to prove it was a lie. So the commodities market responds. The price of oil sinks, goes down at least per barrel of oil, kind of goes down like 15% and then bounces up to just a 12% decline. And I think the price of oil, I haven't checked this morning, but I think it was like $103 dollars a barrel, which is still, before this fucking war, what was it, $86 a barrel? Gas here in New Jersey, where we have some of the cheapest gas in the country, is $3.67 a gallon. I know in California, it's over $6. The national average is right around $4 now. Those numbers are not going to go down exponentially, but the Village Idiot was able to manipulate the market with his bullshit announcement, right? The commodities market took a little bit of a breather. The price of oil declined a little bit, even though the price of gasoline at the pump hasn't. And the stock market rallied kind of sort of a little bit, although when I looked, there was some shitty economic news this morning unrelated when I took a look at CNBC this morning, and it looks like the market was dipping down another couple of percentage, but we're still almost 3,000 points below the 50,000 high mark, the 50,000 point high mark of the Dow that sociopath Attorney General Pam Bondi so proudly told us was the case when she was getting hammered in front of Congress not too long ago. So we had that, market manipulation, and there's a whole discussion perhaps to be had about that as well. But within maybe an hour and a half of the Village Idiot's announcement yesterday that that there were these negotiations going on with the Iranians. Sure enough, the Iranians came in and said, no, we haven't. There's been no negotiations. We haven't spoken with anyone from the Trump administration. And by the way, fuck off. We're not going. Why on earth would we negotiate with this group of people, with Donald Trump, when we were sitting down negotiating with Donald Trump, or with Kushner and Witkoff, supposedly making progress for months? And we were told by Witkoff and Kushner that as long as we were making progress, we wouldn't get attacked. And now you attacked us with the Israelis, and now we're going to come back while we're at war. And we're going to fucking negotiate with you while we have the world, to an extent, although militarily we're getting clobbered. Economically, we are clobbering the United States, certainly Donald Trump. So why would we negotiate? And again, I'm as an American citizen, sometimes a delusional one, I struggle again because I struggle to think to myself, well, it's not right. I mean, I know Donald is a liar, and I know he's, I have no patience for him, and he's as dumb as a rock, and all these other things, But then again, the Iranians lie. It's a propagandized society, at least from the regime's perspective, right? So how do I believe? Who do I believe? Or do I just believe no one? But then I remembered right before the war. What was it, 24 hours before the war started? Before we started it, or 48 hours? I remember Kushner and Witkoff reading articles about, Dingbat 1 and Dingbat 2, telling us that they've made really good progress, that the talks are progressing effectively and efficiently. They told us that. And then 24 to 48 hours later, we were bombing the shit out of Tehran. And then Witkoff and Kushner nobody heard from them. For days and days and days. We started hearing from the Village Idiot. We started hearing from drunken Pete Hegseth about how tough he was and how he was going to destroy the enemy and have no quarter, have no mercy on the enemy. I mean, like that's what we were hearing. And then maybe 10 days into the war, fact check me on it, I might have my chronology mixed up here, Kushner and Witkoff start making appearances on cable news, at least on Fox News, on the propagandist network and other places, saying, well, the Iranians were like this close to a nuclear weapon. They were inches away from a nuclear weapon, and we weren't actually making any progress at all. They were just trying to string everybody along so they could develop a nuclear weapon, which is directly contradictory to what those two simpletons told us 24 to 48 hours before the attack. So clearly, we know Donald lies because Donald just lies, right? If Donald's speaking, he's lying. It's a rare moment when he says something that's true. So we know that. But you have irrefutable evidence here that Kushner and Witkoff lied to us, right? Because and this isn't circumstantial evidence. This is irrefutable evidence that in a court of law would prove you guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. Am I wrong? The idiots tell us 2 days before the bombing that everything's going well. Progress is being made. It's amazing. And then 10 days or so into the war, no. They were never going to do anything. We weren't making any progress whatsoever. They were just stalling for time. Those two contradictory statements that are all available on video are not the same, right? Am I wrong? They're polar opposites, which is suggestive of the fact, not even suggestive, which is proof positive of the fact that they lied, right? So because these two are lying, and I know that Donald Trump is lying, and because Kushner and Witkoff are lying about exactly what the Iranians said, being, as much of a dumbass as I can be, just baseline common sense and logic, and I admit I have limited access to both of those things, right? I'm not the most sensible, logical person. But even me, I can deduce with absolute certainty that the Iranians are telling the truth about the fact that why the fuck would they want to negotiate with this idiot when they already did that. And when they were promised, and when negotiations were making progress, and they were promised there would be no attack, and then there was an attack. So why should they trust him now? So, the Iranians, I believe, are telling the truth when it comes to that issue. And the Trump administration is lying. Lacey, I agree, Mitch, lie after lie. I wonder if people are finally not believing them now. Well, that's the thing, Lacey, and I think that's the whole focus of this short live that's going longer than I planned. They are, and I'm not sure it's the MAGA community. I'm not sure it's the voters, but it's certainly stock traders, commodities traders, who are reacting to the idiot's words. They're believing him. Right? Or at least believing him enough, deluding themselves enough to start buying again and start selling again. And I don't know, commodities traders boggle the mind. I mean, maybe there's a way that they're making money that I don't get, and that's a possibility for me. But why would commodities traders stop selling and start buying oil futures based on the village idiots saying that we're making progress with the Iranians, knowing full well that that doesn't mean anything and that ships are not going to be moving anytime soon or right away through the Straits of Hormuz? People are believing him, or maybe they're just wanting to believe him. It's sort of like climate deniers, right? I think like climate change deniers, right? I think that they're so fearful of the reality of climate change, they just choose not to know it, right? They just choose to ignore no matter how much the reality hits them in the face, and their own block was flooded with a 1,000-year flood 24 hours ago. It happens. The 1,000-year flood happens, every 6 months now. They're just like, as climate change is a Chinese hoax. Donald told us so. And I think these fucking commodities traders and these stock investors sort of think the same way. Oh, Donald, he lies, but this time he's telling the truth. So that's that part, right? So that's the lying, the lie that it's just a bunch of bullshit part, right? And take it with a grain of salt because it is a bunch of bullshit. Now, it does seem like one of the things that confirmed, let me just say it this way. One of the things that confirmed the lie further is the reporting today that the Pakistanis are now stepping up to be the intermediary between the Trump administration and between the Iranians, right? So I found there was reporting today that said that on Sunday, the U.S. had reached out to Pakistan to ask the Pakistanis if they would reach out to the Iranians and sort of become one of the intermediaries, right? So if that reporting is accurate, and it seems to be accurate because the Pakistanis seem to be stepping up to this moment. I mean, this is a moment for Pakistan to be on the international stage, to get some international credit. And by the way, Pakistan is not, Pakistan's involved in a war right now with Afghanistan, by the way. Anyway, there's that. But the Pakistanis have a semi decent relationship with the Iranians, and with the village idiot Donald Trump, they have a good relationship with Trump because they realize that a Pakistani general when India and Pakistan almost went to war last year, and the village idiot and Marco Rubio and the vice president almost fucked it up and made it worse because they kept sticking their nose in, it turns out the Indians and the Pakistanis kind of settled it themselves, irrespective of, the Trump administration sticking its nose in, and now Donald Trump saying that's one of the big wars that he stopped, which he didn't. The Indians were very clear about that he had nothing to do with stopping that war. But the Pakistanis took a different tact during that skirmish, as that skirmish came to a close. They figured they might be able to get some credibility with the Trump administration, and that might benefit them somehow internationally. So they kind of stroked the idiot's ego. Unlike the Indians, and of course they're going to say the opposite of what India says anyway, because they're mortal enemies. The Pakistanis had said, Trump had a big part in stopping the war, and I think this Pakistani general who praised Trump and said that Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. The idiot invited him to the White House, so that guy went to the White House. This general is looked at as the arbiter of evil in India, right? So the idiot has this guy to the White House. I'm sure he lavished the idiot with praise, and it's paying off now because Pakistan has a relationship with Iran and it has a relationship with Trump, and now they're bringing themselves to the forefront so they can be an international player now. They can really, if they can broker a ceasefire in this war, that will be good for them. That'll help Pakistan achieve a certain amount of international credibility that they sure as hell didn't have before this moment in history. So, but the fact that the reporting came out and suggests that the Trump administration reached out to the Pakistanis on Sunday, whether that was before Donald Trump told us that there had been 48 hours, because he told us that on Sunday, that there had been 48 hours of great conversations and great negotiations, or after, it still once again confirms the lie. There had been, what Donald Trump did is he took what may be the truth, if the reporting is accurate, that the U.S. reached out to the Pakistanis to be intermediaries to try to get Donald Trump an off-ramp to get his sorry ass out of the trouble that he's gotten himself in politically. So somehow we went from reaching out to the Pakistanis on Sunday to 48 hours of excellent negotiations with the Iranians that included the son-in-law and the crooked real estate lawyer. And that's the moment that we find ourselves in right now. And my plan was to go over the news, but that didn't happen because I babbled on about this incessantly, and I do have to wrap this live because I got to prep for the interview. But I think to sort of just wrap this very short live as quickly as I can, nothing's changed. The Israelis are hitting targets in Lebanon and hitting targets in Iran. The Iranians are hitting, are shooting drones and missiles at the Israelis as we speak. They, yesterday there were missiles, I think, shot at Saudi Arabia. I don't remember if it was Bahrain, but whatever, some other ally of ours in the Gulf. None of that is stopping. There is no traffic moving through the Straits of Hormuz except any ship that the Iranians deem is allowed, and we have no idea what ships they are because there's been absolutely no reporting about it, if there's any ships at all. So hopefully, God willing, nobody else dies. God willing, the Pakistanis, God willing, the village idiot Donald Trump is scared enough and shaken enough because his polling is so fucking bad right now. And again, that's all he cares about. Uh, that he declares some nonsensical victory in the next couple of days, and he just pulls U.S. troops out of this war, and and at least the killing, at least as far as America is concerned, stops. And unless the Israelis decide that they really need to figure out a way to escalate the war, because I'm sure the Israelis don't want the U.S. leaving the war at this point. I'm sure they have no desire to go on it alone. And I'm sure Benjamin Netanyahu is not willing to let go of this opportunity. He's been waiting 40 years to effectively go to war with Iran. And from his perspective, remove the Iranian threat once and for all. So unless Netanyahu does, and the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, do something so catastrophic to the Iranians that they're forced to retaliate in a way that would subsequently force the U.S. to retaliate in a way and exacerbate the war, as opposed to end it, which I think is a reasonable possibility. Unless that happens, it feels like Donald is done. It feels like this is his pain tolerance point has been reached. He can't, he feels bad for himself. He doesn't like the way he's being covered. He doesn't like the consequences that he's personally experiencing, and he's ready to go to Cuba. I think he's done. And the fact that we haven't seen Drunken Pete Hegseth and General Kane doing their daily briefings for the last couple of days, because Hegseth has really put out there to remind us again that he's not a functioning alcoholic, and that he has a really, really big dick, and he wants everybody to know that. And that's what, as a country, we have we're a country that has a really big dick, and going to war shows everybody in the world how big that dick is. I mean, that is Pete Hegseth in a nutshell. The fact that we haven't seen a daily briefing from him in the last 2 days also feels like if the messaging may be shifting in the Trump administration to declare victory and get the fuck out. So we'll see. So guys, please, whichever platform that you're watching from, I appreciate you being here. In just about 15 minutes, I have an interview with Ken Harbaugh. Ken Harbaugh is a former U.S. Navy pilot. He is an expert in the kind of drone warfare that is happening today. He was embedded not too long ago with the Ukrainian drone killing team, protecting the town of Kherson, and he did a documentary about that. I'm going to be interviewing him. I think I'm going to do it just because I've had some technical issues with my live streams. I think I'm going to just interview Ken off live, but I'll be posting that interview on Substack later on today. Please definitely check it out. If you don't subscribe, go over to Zenocracy.news, Zenocracy.news. That's my Substack. The subscription is free. If it's something you're comfortable with and you want to support my work, please consider a paid subscription. But for the first couple of days after that interview goes live, it'll be on Substack. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, one live at a time. That's how we survive this. We chunk through it. Take what you can. If you've got to walk away and take a breath, do that. Come back. We'll be here holding the line and re-enter the fight. I'll see you guys soon. Tomorrow, 11:15 a.m. I'll see you then. Be well, everybody.